Good Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 9th. Today we are reading together here in Psalm 119. We're going to be reading verses 121 through 144. Psalm 119, verses 121 through 144. This is going to be covering the sections of Ayin, of Peh, and of Zadeh. Ayin, Peh, and Zadeh. Three themes as we've been going through this psalm, looking at these individual sections. We've been focusing on a theme or a main idea for each of these sections. In the first section, the theme is going to be desiring God's presence. The second section, God's wondrous word. And the last section then, verses 137 through 144, the incomparable nature of God's word. This Psalm 119 is a celebration of God's word, but it's also become abundantly apparent to me as we read through these various sections that the author, assuming that it was one author who put together this acrostic style poem here in the Psalter, that the author was writing this in a situation where there was tribulation of some sort. We've noticed numerous times that there have been those who have been deceiving him. There are those who are double-minded. There are those who do not follow him. There are those who have been oppressing him. There have been his persecutors. There have been those offering him or putting him under affliction. So it makes sense to me then that in the midst of such a trial and a difficulty, that he would go to that which offers comfort. And that, of course, is God, his word, his instruction, his precepts, and all the many different ways that is described here in Psalm 119. So let me get the text up on the screen, and we'll read along together here in Psalm 119, beginning in verse 121. Psalm 119, verse 121 through 144. Psalm 119, verse 121, the Ayin section says, I have done what is right and just. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Guarantee your servant's well-being. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes grow weary looking for your salvation and for your righteous promise. Deal with your servant based on your faithful love. Teach me your statutes. I am your servant. Give me understanding so that I may know your decrees. It is time for Yahweh to act, for they have violated your instruction. Since I love your commands more than gold, even the purest gold, I carefully follow all your precepts and hate every false way. Verse 129, the Peh section. Your decrees are wondrous, therefore I obey them. The revelation of your words brings light and gives understanding to the inexperienced. I open my mouth and pant because I long for your commands. Turn to me and be gracious to me, as is your practice toward those who love your name. Make my steps steady through your promise. Don't let any sin dominate me. Redeem me from human oppression, and I will keep your precepts. Make your face shine on your servant, and teach me your statutes. My eyes pour out streams of tears because people do not follow your instructions. And then finally, the last section, verses 137 through 144, the Zadeh section. You are righteous, Yahweh, and your judgments are pure, and your judgments are just. The decrees you issue are righteous and altogether trustworthy. My anger overwhelms me because my foes forget your words. Your word is completely pure, and your servant loves it. I am insignificant and despised, but I do not forget your precepts. Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your instruction is true. Trouble and distress have overtaken me, but your commands are my delight. Your decrees are righteous forever. Give me understanding, and I will live. Psalm 119 and verses 121 through 144. Again, the main themes of these Psalms, we're gonna work through these Psalms from that perspective. The first theme, the big idea in the Ayin section, verses 121 through 128, I have settled upon desiring God's presence. Desiring God's presence. Do not leave me to my oppressors. So the author here obviously desires for God's presence to be with him as opposed to his oppressors. totally makes sense why that is the case. And in doing so, he makes these requests, guarantee your servant's well-being. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes grow weary looking for your salvation and for your righteous promise. Right now, it seems as if the author is enduring some sort of oppression. We don't know exactly what that case is, but he is desiring from God, requesting from God that those oppressors would be pushed away from him, that they would leave him, and that instead he would be able to embrace the salvation and the righteous promises of God. So the request continues, deal with your servant based on your faithful love and teach me your statutes. I am your servant. Give me understanding so that I may know your decrees. The author here, it seems obvious again to me that he has a relationship with Yahweh, and he desires for Yahweh to deal with him and to respond to him on the basis of his faithful love, on the basis of the covenants that he had, that exists between Yahweh and the author here. And in order to embrace all the more the presence of God, he wants to know more about God's statutes. He wants to have a greater understanding of Yahweh's decrees. And as we get to the end, get to verse 127, 127 and 128. We'll get back here a second to 126, but since I love your commands more than gold, even the purest gold, I carefully follow all your precepts and I hate every false way. I think what we learn from this is that obedience and faithfulness, they lead to greater fellowship with God. They lead to greater fellowship with God. As we obey him, as we are drawn nearer to him, we will feel that. And there will be peace and joy that comes with being in God's presence. So, of course, he's in deliverance. So it is time then for Yahweh to act, for they have violated your instruction. No, they haven't treated me right from the author's perspective. They've been arrogant in the way that they've operated, which of course is against the will of God. So it's time for you to act and know that I am going to be committed to you, that I love your commands. I carefully follow all your precepts, and everything that is false, everything that is of the way that they belong to, my arrogant oppressors, I want nothing to do with that. I want nothing to do with that whatsoever. I simply want to be in your presence. I want to be a part of your people, and I want to enjoy the blessings that come with showing obedience, or with being obedient and showing faithfulness to you. So that's the first section here, desiring God's presence, longing to know him through his word, and then to apply those things in obedience and faithfulness. The pay section in verses 129 through 136, I've given the theme of understanding God's wondrous word. Your decrees, the author says, are wondrous. Therefore, I obey them. So what makes God's decrees wondrous? Well, number one, they bring light. The words of his revelation bring light, meaning that they bring understanding even to the inexperienced. So you imagine those who are considered inexperienced as being those who are kind of stumbling through the dark. They don't know exactly which way to go. They don't know what to do. But what God's word does, what the revelation of his words does, is that these things bring light. They light the path for the person to walk on, which is very similar to what we looked at yesterday or on Monday and saw in verse 105, where your word is a lamp to my feet and a light onto my path. I think there's a similar idea being given here in verse 130, in verse 130. So his word is wondrous because he can take even the blind and give them sight. He can take the inexperienced and give them knowledge and wisdom. So I open my mouth and I pant because I long for your commands. They're so wondrous, the author says, that I want them so much. I desire to have them for myself. So turn to me and be gracious to me, as it is your practice toward those who love your name. Going back to verse 124, deal with your servant based upon your faithful love. Again, those who are faithful to you, those who are in covenant with you, you are gracious to them. And that's what I want to do, because I love your name as well. I want to experience your graciousness towards me. What does God's word continue to do? Verse 133, it makes my steps steady. It doesn't let sin dominate me. God's word, the knowledge and meditation and application of it, they free from sin. Again, we see that in verse 34, redeem me from human oppression, and I will keep your precepts. Make your face shine on your servant, and teach me your statutes. That fellowship and presence idea there is there in verse 135. And then here's the wondrous nature of God's word is to this decree in the eyes and the mind of the person here, of the author here. My eyes pour out streams of tears because people do not follow your instruction. The author here is moved to sadness, even crying tears, because others reject God's wondrous word and they reject the blessings that come with it. How great is God's word? How wondrous is God's word? Well, it brings light and understanding to the inexperienced. It makes steps steady. It redeems and keeps sin from dominating. And why wouldn't anybody want that? Why would people not want to enjoy these good blessings? So that's something the author doesn't quite understand very well, and he's moved to sadness because of that decision that they make. But the theme here in the pace section of 100 verses 129 through 136, God's word is wondrous. And we see many reasons why that is the case here within this psalm, or within the section of Psalm 119. Then finally for today's read, verses 137 through 144, the Zadeh section. The theme I have given here is the incomparable nature of God's word. So very similar, you might say, to what we just saw about the wondrous nature of God's word. Well, now we see that it is incomparable, because everything that is listed here in these verses 137 through 144, they are attributes and descriptors of God's word that make it unlike anything else. Everything else in this world falls short in some way to these standards, but God's word matches them perfectly. You are righteous, Yahweh, and your judgments are just. That's the first thing we see here. Your judgments are just. Your decrees you issue are righteous. They're righteous. And they're altogether trustworthy. They're altogether trustworthy. Your word is completely pure. Verse 140. 142, your righteousness is everlasting righteousness. Your instruction is true. Your instruction is true. Your instruction is true. Your commands are my delight. Your decrees are righteous forever. So all these descriptors that are mentioned here in these verses lead us to understand just how valuable God's word is. That's why the author here is angry, because his foes forget your words. Why would they want to forget these words that are so incredible and so great? And it's why your servant, the author says, loves your word. Sure, the author here again mentions the oppression and the difficulty he's mentioning, or that he seems to be experiencing, about his insignificance and the fact that he is despised, but nothing compares to God's precepts. So he's going to continue to focus on those things. He's not going to forget his precepts, even though he is afflicted. Trouble and distress overtake me, but he's not going to focus on that. He's going to focus on that which is greater, which are the commands of God, the decrees of God that are righteous. What he wants more than anything else is to be given understanding so that he might live. What else in this life can give us understanding that can lead directly to life? Well, there's nothing else. Nothing else can do that but God and his word alone. Surely it is incomparable, because it is just, it is right, it is trustworthy, it is pure, it is his delight. Again, righteous. It gives understanding. It gives life. That's why we've been reading God's word together over the past few years, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. We want to spend time in God's word on a very regular basis, so that it gives us things to think about, gives us things to meditate upon, gives us principles that we can apply so that we can live the way that God would have us to live. And what a grace it is that he has given us his word so that we can live the very lives that he wants us to live. I appreciate so much you reading along with me today on this Wednesday. I know everybody's looking forward to being together tonight for our continuation of our Wednesday special study series on the nature of God. I know you should be very excited for Craig to present the study tonight on the names of God and various descriptors of God that are mentioned throughout the text. I know that'll be a blessing to you, and I hope that everybody will be able to be in attendance so that you can experience that blessing and be benefited by what Craig will present. And we look forward to returning here toward the end of the week on Friday or Saturday. We should be getting back into town and looking forward to being with everybody on Wednesday, which, by the way, Craig or Jim will mention it tonight. But Michael Stevens, one of the preachers that we support in Canada, the top hat to the north of our country. He's going to be with us this next Sunday, and he's going to be presenting to us about his work during the Bible class period. As far as I know right now, the plan is for him to present a report of his work in the Bible class period, and then preach to us during our worship assembly. He has a very large travel crew. I want to say there's going to be 7 or 8 within his group, including himself. So we're looking forward to meeting all of them and spending some time with them. So make sure you mark that down for Sunday, that we'll get to meet one of the preachers that we support and be encouraged by him, and hopefully be a great encouragement to him as well. But for tonight, our continued, get it out here in a second, our continued Wednesday special study series, Craig leading a study on the names of God. Friday, we'll be finishing up Psalm 119. We're going to read 4 sections, so a little bit more of a lengthy reading on Friday, beginning in verse 145 and going through verse 176. But then we'll be done with Psalm 119, and next week, as we continue on, we'll continue on to the next Psalm 120. But on Friday, we'll finish up Psalm 119. Sunday, we'll have Michael Stevens and his fellow travelers with us, and then we'll continue on in our reading through this year, continue on worshiping and serving together here in Loudon. Again, I appreciate you so much for tuning in today. I hope that this stream has gone a lot better. Anytime you go on the road, it's a search for the best Wi-Fi you can find. I think I finally found some good Wi-Fi, so I appreciate the church here allowing me to use their building to make these videos this week. And I hope, again, they'll be a blessing to you all. We'll see you on Friday. Take care, and God bless.